This wasn't just a simple collapse. This was a full-on controlled demolition. The destruction of trust, of people's lives, and of the belief that someone is actually controlling the system. The 2008 crisis wasn't some kind of accident. On the contrary, it was the inevitable outcome of a massive structure built over years, fed by greed and cunning, packed with fake money disguised as financial innovation. And when things blew up, it wasn't just Wall Street that went down. Homes, savings, jobs, and dreams collapsed with it. But do you know what hurt the most? Most of the people who caused this chaos walked away even richer. If you were a regular person in 2008, you probably got punched in the face before you even realized what was happening. One day, newspapers were talking about rising home prices. The next day, banks were failing, retirements were disappearing, and the market was crashing. And suddenly, your government was pouring billions, not into your pockets, not into the pockets of the people left broke, but into the pockets of the ones who caused the disaster. The crisis is usually explained with complicated terms: subprime, CDS, securitization, systemic risk. But the story is actually very simple. People who had the money and power did whatever they wanted without asking anyone anything. Let's rewind the tape a bit. In the early 2000s, Wall Street was in trouble. The dot-com lie had collapsed. The economy was shaking. Banks were looking for the next golden opportunity, and they found it in real estate. Because in America, owning a home isn't just a dream, it's almost an addiction. Wall Street managed to turn this addiction into a product. That's how mortgage-backed securities were born. The logic was simple: gather a bunch of home loans, bundle them together, and sell them as a single investment. Low risk, steady returns, backed by real homes. On paper and to the ear, it sounded great. But to keep the machine running, they needed more loans. When they ran out of normal borrowers, they started giving loans to people they knew couldn't pay. No income proof, no realistic payment plan. Who cares? The risk was on someone else's shoulders anyway. On top of that, they built a betting system called credit default swaps. People started betting not on homes, but on bankruptcies themselves. So the closer the crisis got, the more it became a golden opportunity for some. The credit rating agencies, the ones who were supposed to supervise, openly stamped these toxic packages with AAA. Why? Because they were getting paid by the banks selling the products. In other words, the referee was being paid by the team playing on the field. Everyone was making money. So nobody stopped to think, wait, something's wrong here. Then, after 2005, things really began to heat up. Home prices skyrocketed, but wages didn't move. People were buying and selling homes they didn't even live in, just to make quick money. Turns out it was a bubble about to burst. Then the bubble burst. Payments fell behind, foreclosures rose. Bonds started collapsing. The safe products sitting in bank vaults evaporated in value almost overnight. Lehman Brothers fell. AIG collapsed. Bear Stearns was already gone. The biggest names in finance were falling one by one. The system froze. Banks couldn't even lend to each other. Markets collapsed. Millions lost their jobs and homes. $19 trillion in wealth vanished in a single year. And then the government stepped in. But not for the people. For the banks. Trillions were pumped in dying through TARP and other programs. And the result? While ordinary people were still unemployed, homeless and drowning in debt, Wall Street executives kept collecting bonuses. This wasn't just a financial disaster. It was a moral collapse. A truth slapped in our faces. who the system really works for. Years passed, but the system didn't change. It actually grew bigger, faster, more complicated. Central banks created trillions and pumped them into the markets. Asset prices soared. Stock markets hit records. The rich got richer. Wages stayed the same. Then 2020 hit, and even more money was created. For a short time, it looked like everything was fixed, until inflation came crashing back in 2021, and hard. Interest rates went up, borrowing became harder, and the same cracks we saw in 2008 began to reappear. Only this time, the system is even more fragile. Corporate debt is at record highs. Government debt is climbing at historic levels. Consumers are addicted to credit. The financial sector is darker, more concentrated, less transparent. Crypto bubbles popped. Fintech companies continued to repackage old traps as innovation. But the core truth hasn't changed. This system is a balloon inflated by debt. And when combined with a leadership that refuses to let bad ideas die, every crisis hits harder than the last. So what can we learn from all this? 1. Complexity is not safety. The harder something is to understand, the easier it is to hide risk inside it. 2. Incentives determine everything. If you rescue a failing bank, that bank will take even bigger risks next time. 3. Financial literacy is not a luxury, it's a shield. Spotting bubbles, questioning narratives, and asking, who walks away richer from this, is essential. Because the music always stops one day. 2008 wasn't a surprise. It was a trailer, a warning. The system still stands on the same foundations today. Just more digital, faster, and more fragile. When the next shock hits, you may see another bailout. But don't expect justice. Real wealth isn't just money. It's knowledge, awareness, the ability to stay standing when the storm hits. For when that storm finally comes, if this gave you a new perspective, don't forget to like and subscribe. History has a lot to show us, if you know where to look.